Hey guys, it's Rev from Into Gaming. Take a few minutes here to do this video covering a little bit about tick rate, a little bit about replication, well, a little bit more about replication, and mainly about latency, player latency, and how it affects what you view and when you actually see characters move and whatnot. This is like what the community considers desync, um, which it's not really desync if you start understanding all the variables at play. Um, but first, what I want to get into is at the top right hand corner of my screen and the green text, that's the server's tick rate. So the server tick rate in this example is going to be 60 hertz. And the number below that is the tick interval. That's the time in between ticks. So basically, if you take 60, or take 1,000 divided by 60, you'll get 16.6667. So that's just the time in between ticks. Why are ticks important? Ticks are how often the client, you and I, update the server with our movement. And we do movement updates on ticks as a way to mitigate bandwidth usage. So technically, what's really happening when you press forward is you're not sending that input to the server immediately. It's being batched and bundled with other inputs during the interval and all bundled together and sent off in one packet at tick. So you have tick 1 starts, you start inputting movement. At tick 2, it's going to pass off all that input that you started from tick 1 till tick 2 fired in one packet. So inherently, you get the tick interval delay. So exactly at tick 1, I press W to move forward. It's got 16.7 milliseconds of delay before that input is actually sent to the server. Actually, the packet's created and fired off. Now, my ping affects how long it takes for that data to get to the server once it's sent. And that's where we get into the ping and the UTT data. Ping is round trip time, and we don't use ping in game. I mean, it's a display to give you some kind of a metric on how far away from the server you are, but in reality, what we're using is 50% of the ping, which is the update travel time, one-way travel time. So, the whole point of that is when you send a packet to the server, it's not going from you to the server and then back to you. It's just going from you to the server, so it's 50% of your ping for travel time, because ping is all about distance, how long it takes data to get to a destination and then come back. So it's distance traveled time. So you can just look at it that way. And come over to, for an example, a 50 millisecond ping has a 25 millisecond UTT, 100 millisecond ping, a 50 millisecond UTT, a 200 millisecond ping equals a 100 millisecond UTT. And I'm giving you all these numbers and information because once I start popping in some of the latency values into the console and everything, you're not going to see some of these flat numbers, 50 ping, 100 ping, 200 ping, etc. You're going to see a combination of values because there's a whole lot of different delay factors beyond ping, and that's what I'm getting ready to get into with replication delays. Like I was saying before, when you input something, it sits on your client until tick, and then it gets sent. As far as movement, and this only applies to movement, other replication such as firing a shot, that's sent instantly. When you pick up loot in game, that's sent instantly to the server. These are RPCs that are done, remote procedure calls that are done instantly. They're fired and executed instantly, so the server has the data that it can replicate instantly on its end because it's really game relevant and time relevant. you wouldn't want somebody snatching a gun from you off the ground, because of a tick delay. So you want those type of events to fire immediately. So what we have here is for movement delays, it's client server replication delay is usually the tick interval. That's basically what you're going to get. So on this example, 60 hertz, I have a 16.7 millisecond delay before it's actually fired to send to the server. Then we have the player's UTT, the person that made the input. And then we have the server to client replication delay. Typically, well, in this example, for example, we're going to be using a one-to-one replication, so it's just going to be 16.7. Now, if we're going with the industry standard of a 2-to-1 ratio, which is every 2 updates you do to the server, it does 1, then we have to multiply the tick interval twice because it's 2 ticks before it sends you an update. And then the opponent that's getting the data, it's got to travel to him, so it's their UTT. So, in a long-winded roundabout way, we can get down to our little example here: 100 millisecond versus a 30 millisecond at 60 hertz tick. How long will it take for the 30 millisecond player to get 100 millisecond player's input? So client to server will be 16.7 plus 50 milliseconds for the UTT, and then server to the opponent is 16.7 plus 15 millisecond for his UTT, so 31.7, which comes out a total of 98.4 for a 1-to-1 replication. Now, for a 2-to-1 replication, we got to double the server to opponent replication delay for the tick, so it's 33.4. So it comes out to 115.1 if it's doing a 2-to-1. That doesn't sound like a lot, and you'll see it's not too bad in this scenario on a 60 hertz. Now, if I was to take this and say, let's go for a 30 hertz setup, what you're looking at for a 1-to-1 is 131.66 milliseconds. And for a 2-to-1, you're looking at 164.99. That's crazy. That's a crazy ping difference. And I'm going to show that to you here in just a second. But I just wanted to show you guys all these different values that you have to account for when you're seeing the network lag, because I can't just pop in one value on here like a ping value and let this system run with it, because none of these other values are going to be represented correctly because I'm running the dedicated server locally. So it's on the same box as this whole client's running, so we're not really going to have tick interval delays in that regard. And I'm not getting download latency. So when the server sends my client data and vice versa, it's not going to be delayed because I can only do a one-way delay with this setup. So I'm having to compile all the load onto one of the clients. So on the left side of the screen is client 1, right side is client 2. I'm going to pop on client 2. Now, you can see replication at the moment. There's 60 hertz, 0 ping on both. It's pretty daggone beautiful. It's beautiful. Plain and simple, it's beautiful. So we got that aspect. Now, with the you can see the. Let me get over here so I can line these two bad boys up a little bit. I'll tab over this guy, pull his camera down a little bit. So everything seems to be in sync pretty good. So or 0 pinged out at 60 hertz. So that's pretty decent precision. The higher the tick rate, the greater precision in the math calculations, because there's smaller movement increments. The lower the tick, the greater the movement distance, so it's a lot more complex calculation to depict where a player should be on the server's version versus where it is on the client. So higher tick increases precision, but it comes at a cost. That higher tick lowers the tick interval, so the server has less time to complete all its calculations for every player. When we send packet data, every player sending that packet, their packet for the current tick at the same daggone time. So if you got 100 players on the server, that's 100 packets that are being received at the server roughly at the same time. Regardless of the ping, you always have a flow of packets being sent out. They're coming. It's a stream of packets. One every 16.7 milliseconds is getting fired off and sent to the server. So the server's constantly receiving packets and doing all these calculations of where a player should be at. And for 100 players, that's 100 different players it's got to calculate for in 16.7 milliseconds. That's just player movement. That's not counting projectiles, flights for the physics. That's not counting vehicle physics. That's not counting glass, loot, doors, or any other destructible environment stuff, grenades going off, and all the other different things that are happening in the game that it's got to replicate out to other players, calculate where it should be, and so forth. So that's a lot of stuff that's got to be happening off in 16.7 milliseconds. Every 16.7 milliseconds. So there's no doubt that the server performs better in late game because there's less players to worry about, less bullets flying around, and so forth. So with that, let's get in here and start doing some damage with this ping stuff. So latency here. I'm gonna simulate the number that I put in here. It simulates the UTT. So if I want to simulate a player with 100 ping, I would put a 50 millisecond value in here, and that command is basically going to delay sending my packet for 50 milliseconds. That's it. It's just, that's all it's doing. It's just delaying it. And you can already see just with the 50 that there's a little bit, there's some delay here. It's not much, but I bet you if you slowed this down and looked at it, you'd see it a little bit better. But anyway, with that, I need to get down here and get some of my base numbers. So what we want to do is to replicate a full on 100 versus 30, I need to pop in a value of 98.4. So 0.4. And what that's going to do is it's going to make me, the guy I'm controlling, he's the 100 pinger, and the other guy is the 30 pinger. So you can see it a little bit more, see a little bit more delay here. But it's still not bad. At 60 hertz, a total delay of 100 milliseconds, a tenth of a second, is not bad because we have that precision for movement. We have that small interval for precision. Now, cranking it up to 115 is not going to make much difference, but I'm going to do it anyway. 115.1. So we got that value. And what do we have here? A little bit more. A little bit more noticeable. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more noticeable. But that's, that's not bad. That's 100 versus a 30. Now, let's say I wanted to do a 250 millisecond player versus a 30. That's 173.4. So that's kind of what we deal with in PUBG when we have, say, I'm usually at an 18 ping, and about this time of night, what I'm going to be running into is 300, 400 ping players. So 250 is kind of like the average, but you can definitely see the delay here. And this is on 60 hertz. Imagine what this would be like on 30 hertz. 173. So the equivalent on a 30 hertz setup would be 206. So let me go through, and we're going to T-dot max FPS. We're going to set the server to a 30 hertz, and then I'm going to set my ping to what am I doing? Just back that out. I don't know what I'm doing. Net lag, net packet lag. 206, 206.66. Yeah, that would be a 250 versus a 30 at 30 hertz, counting all the replication delays and everything. So this is pretty much what we're dealing with in PUBG. See that delay there? That's a nasty delay. Yeah, that's pretty bad. This, PUBG's running at 30 hertz in most situations, and you can see my players getting corrected a little bit by the server. It's not as smooth, but it's got more time to run calculations, but it needs that time because the interval allows for me to input for 33 milliseconds, so it's got a lot more packet information to process. So you can see that pretty straightforward at 30 hertz. So that's just basically what I wanted to show you guys. Your ping and your opponent's ping affects what you're seeing. So you can have a really low ping, like the other dude in this screen. I mean, he's ballparked at a 30 ping for these simulations. So that's pretty low. Yet his opponent has a 250 millisecond ping. That's 125 milliseconds of just raw lag that you can't get rid of, no matter how much you code. The only thing that can be done here to sweeten the pot would be to increase the tick rate, and we'll take that 206 down to a, what is that? 206 would be down to a 173.4. So you can shave off a nice chunk of delay just by increasing the tick to 60 hertz. But you'd also have to take it up to a 1-to-1 ratio and not a 2-to-1. This is based on a 1-to-1. If I wanted to do this as a 2-to-1, like common servers do, and more like what PUBG does, take that 206, and we need to add another 33 to it. Let's just ballpark it at 239. So we have to add another 33 for a 2-to-1. So there you go. Plain and simple, man. And you just imagine a peak. How delayed is that? Yeah. Anyway, hope it's helpful. Have any questions, leave a comment or hit us up directly at Into Gaming Discord.